Dear students, a very warm good morning to all of you. We have taken up the poem Portrait of a Lady by T.S. Eliot. In our last class, we have completed the part 1. Today we'll take up part 2 of the same poem. The part 1 started in the month of December, that was winter. The second part has the reference to spring. Now that the lilacs are in bloom, she has a bowl of lilacs in her room and twists one in her fingers while she talks. Ah, my friend, you do not know. You do not know what life is. You, who hold it in your hands, slowly twisting the lilac stalks. You let it flow from you. You let it flow. And youth is cruel and has no more remorse and smiles at situations which it cannot see. I smile, of course, and go on drinking tea. The second part has a reference to spring when lilacs are blooming. The lady, too, has a bowl of lilacs in her room, and while she is talking to the young man, her fingers are busy twisting one of the flowers. The indication is that the brightness of her mind is precarious and deceptive. She begins in a warm, anxious tone that he perhaps does not realize that life, and especially the period of youth granted to him, is precious but transitory. So he must enjoy life while it lasts. But he is simply wasting it, unmindful of the fact that youth has no remorse and pity for the lost opportunities and only smiles at such follies. The young man, too, just smiles and keeps on drinking tea. The lady then continues, yet with these April sunsets that somehow recall my buried life and Paris in the spring, I feel immeasurably at peace and find the world to be wonderful and youthful after all. The lady says that April sunset, which symbolizes the advent of spring, has received her a happy youthful life at Paris in spring, which till now lay buried under the debris of years. She once more feels peaceful, happy, and youthful, and the world too appears to her wonderful and young. Buried Life is a poem composed by Arnold, dealing with the impulsive, passionate side of a man's nature, which lies below the sober and placid demeanor. Then we have the contrast between the lady's reactions and the young man's reaction. The voice returns like the insistent out of tune of a broken violin on an August afternoon. I'm always sure that you understand my feelings, always sure that you feel, sure that across the gulf you reach your hand. The cheery note of the lady sounds to the young man like the harsh, discordant note of a broken violin on an August afternoon. August here stands for the autumn. The lady once again resumes with the same earnestness that she is sure and has no doubt about his power of understanding her feelings. He will surely bridge the gulf by a sympathetic reciprocation. She further says that he has an advantage over her as he is invulnerable and emotion has made no weak spot in him. You are invulnerable. You have no Achilles' heel. You will go on, and when you have prevailed, you can say, at this point, many a one has failed. But what have I? But what have I, my friend, to give you? What can you receive from me? Only the friendship and the sympathy of one about to reach a journey's end? I'll sit here, serving tea to friends. The lady says that the young man can march on victoriously, dismissing the matter with the remark that many relations break off at the point which divides friendship from love. But she has nothing to give in return except the friendship and sympathy of a person who has reached the end of the life's journey. She wants to hint that the breach of friendship will leave her tied to the dead, monotonous routine of her empty life, and she will sit here serving tea to friends. I take my hat. Here we again see the reactions of the young man. I take my hat. How can I make a cowardly amends for what she has said to me? You will see me any morning in the park reading the comics in the sporting page, particularly, I remark. An English countess goes upon the stage. A Greek was murdered at a Polish dance. Another bank defaulter has confessed. I keep my countenance. I remain self-possessed except when a street piano, mechanical and tired, reiterates some worn-out common song with a smell of hyacinths across the garden, recalling things that other people have desired. Are these ideas right or wrong? As the lady stops, the young man takes off his hat and finds himself at a loss to find a cowardly excuse for her sentimental statements full of self-pity. But he has his usual distractions to maintain a self-possessed countenance and to forget his momentary remorse. One can see him any morning in the park reading comics and sporting pages during his morning stroll. The news items which particularly interest him are the report about a countess who takes to acting, the murder of a Greek at a Polish dance, the confession of a bank defaulter. So the lady's appeal has not disturbed the peace of his mind. He seems to bear a nonchalant appearance, but even he is moved when he hears the sound of a street piano which repeats an old familiar song, and the smell of hyacinths across the garden assails his nose. All these make him recall the people who have longed for love in such situation. But he dismisses this momentary fancy with a rational question and asks himself if such ideas are right or wrong. So this shows the inability of the young man to make a decision even. And this is the characteristic of a modern age. This was the end of the part 2, that was the spring. In our next class, we'll be dealing with the part 3 of the poem, that is the concluding part of the poem. Thank you.